this is John, host of the Prepared Mind channel. I'm going to touch the social third rail on this video, and I know the name of it's really going to suck. I mean, how the fuck do you say it? The problem with refugees. It just doesn't sound like it's really something that we should be concerned with. But it is. I want to thank you guys for participating to the extent you have in the brand new video I did about where not to be when shit hits the fan. Especially you Canucks up north. You've got a good sense of humor about Americans. And I said you guys are cannibals. I thought that was pretty funny. Tonight's smoke is a Arturo Fuente Hemingway short story. And I mean, if you can get you one of the 7-inch long ones, the bigger ones, they're about $15 a smoke. They're really nice. This is just a little, I think they're around $5 or so for the short story. But if you don't want a big smoke and you want that quality that you get from an Arturo Fuente Hemingway, I'm going to promote that. Additionally, I'm drinking my Scotch neat tonight. And it's a Glenfiddich 12-year single malt. You know, sometimes I like the Glenlivet, other times I like the Glenfiddich. It depends on whether I want more or less of the peatiness. Other than that, I consider them very comparable scotches, distinct in their own right, but also just right down the middle, right down the fat part of the pipe, you know. It's a strike. You know, if you want something with a little different taste, you go with Lafrogue or the Balvenie. But, you know, it's all personal. Anyways, I've really enjoyed talking with you guys a lot lately and doing the videos. I had a couple of slow days there. Slow days on YouTube, but fast everywhere else. But there's a lot of problems with shit hitting the fan. And one of them right now that we're just starting to feel is refugees. Let's just hop right into it, huh? Refugees are... They're like being invaded by aliens. They don't understand our culture in America. They don't understand our morality, our ethics. The cost of blood in countries where refugees flee from is cheap in comparison to what we have here in America. We value things here greatly. There's a lot of money and time spent on human beings in this country with regard to education and nutrition. You know, it's more expensive to live in America than a third world nation. Hence, there's more investment in its people. And even though we have problems in America, problems between our different subcultures, blacks, Mexicans, those crazy Canadians up north, you know, whites, Asians, Native Americans, you know, we're all still trying to live how to live together, how to cooperate and cooperate. Yeah, cooperate's a good word. We're all trying to do that. But when you throw in something like immigrants, refugees rather, refugees have no interest in being true immigrants in the American sense of the word, and that is blending in, learning our culture, respecting our culture for what it is. It may not be perfect, but it is our culture and it is our nation. My family's been here since the early 1700s. I think I can claim it as my nation, just as anyone else can, who's born here and has a stake in it. Right? I have a stake. I have interest in the quality of life we have, the safety and sanctity of life, the environment, everything. Refugees do not. If you want to see what refugees are doing to a nation, to nation states, take a look at Europe. Take a look at the trouble they're having. And then let's look at refugees. Okay, let's go up to Scandinavia. People look a lot like me there. And they've got immigrants who are coming into their country, Muslim immigrants, who have no respect for their northern ways. And subsequently, the Swedes, Finns, and especially the Norwegians, I guess, are having trouble. Danes, They're having trouble with these. It's almost like an invasion, but they're immigrants. There's problems with them raping people, stealing from people, assaulting people, physically harming them. Very smooth. And those are people that have sworn, right? They're immigrants. They've immigrated there. They've sworn to be part of the country. When you look at refugees, these are people escaping war-torn areas. They have no interest at all in the country they're going to. They aren't even pretending to have an interest in it. They're there to escape the damage. They are bringing shit it's the fan with them. That's why they're immigrants. When one nation is next to another and the one nation is exposed to a shit hitting the fan scenario, typically war-torn imperialist activity, they want to flee it, and they take their problems and their attitude with them. Let's just use Libya as an example. If Libya was a great place to be, would people be wanting to flee it? Well, hell no, of course not. So obviously it's a nation in turmoil. It's in a variety of stages of shit hitting the fan, depending on where you're at. And therein lies the problem. They are not far from everyone else. And they are ready to act out. They need to live. They need to survive. They're already desperate, and they don't share Europe's values. They're finding their way into Turkey, into Greece. They're going up the Adriatic into Italy, France, Spain. And they don't have the same moral boundaries that anyone else has. So I'm saying the problem with shit it's the fan is, or in shit it's the fan, the problem is refugees. If you're anywhere in the United States of America, political refugees are going to make your life a nightmare. On the one hand. On the other hand, they're going to be easy to spot. They're not going to speak English very well, and they're going to stick out like a sore thumb. My guess is if they misbehave, they're going to be put in check really fast with a piece of lead. But at the same time, if you're not aware of them, they don't have the restrictions that we have. They don't have the empathy we have as Americans. Americans are pretty soft-hearted. Despite what the news says, despite what Hollywood shows the world about Americans, we're good people. We pay our taxes. We help others. We're very generous. And to a fault in a lot of ways. A lot of the world hates America. And I think with poor reason. Because it's the government that does things, not the people. But if we get a bigger refugee issue here in our nation, you can count on that contributing to shit hitting the fan. Or at the very least, when shit does hit the fan, they're going to make it a whole lot worse. Because they already know how to survive in shit hits the fan. They know what needs to be done. Because they've left it. They have fled it. Now let's take a look at why these refugees are leaving their countries. Again, we'll point right to Libya, and then also at Syria. Europe and the United States of America, the governments and the banksters have decided that they want the resources. They want Syria as a transportation corridor for oil. It's about money, and they're in there fucking up these third world nations. And if they're second world, they're making them third world. They're making them disaster zones. They're making them recruiting areas for terrorism. They're turning a good people into despicable characters because they've been reduced to being refugees in their own country. And they're having to flee. And they're bringing their problems with them. Our government, as in Obama, and Hillary was going to do the same, are bringing in refugees into our nation wholesale. What you're seeing on the news is just the tip of the iceberg. The government, believe it or not, needs a version of stability, but they also need a modicum of instability. Bringing in refugees into this nation is going to create the instability that they like so that they can pass more laws. They're not the kind of good laws that help the people. They're the kind of laws that help the government. That is the problem with refugees, is they are going to exacerbate our problem here. They're going to increase the need for more government. And when government collapses, when we have a shit it's the fan scenario strike, they're going to wreak havoc on people because they're already accustomed to living. I mean, they look at America as a candy store. It's ripe for the taking. How else could they see it? They come from a place where if you steal something, they cut your hand off. There's radical religious extremism. If you don't subscribe to the region or district's version of Islam, they'll kill you. They come here and we're religiously tolerant. We're behaviorally tolerant. We're generous. It's the land of milk and honey compared to the shitholes these refugees have come from. They said they look at it like a candy store with a free sign out front. That's what these refugees see in us. They see soft targets. When shit hits the fan, you better harden up, and I've talked about that a lot. You better harden the fuck up quick. You better be well prepared to start, and then you better have a hard heart. Now, I don't mean a cruel heart, a hard heart. Understanding the situation you're in and what needs to be done. And a big problem with shit hits the fan in select areas is going to be refugees. Mark my words. If you don't, you'll never know about it because you'll be dealing with your own version of bullshit. But I really enjoyed this series, The Problem With, because it's allowing me to point to very specific areas and talk about what we need to do to prepare for them, how we should think about them. Bringing it to light and not just glossing over it. Not saying marauders, right? But saying refugees or gang members. And when we talk about people, we talk about women or children, city folks or country folks. So I'd like you to, if I can, click the subscribe button. At the end of the video, there'll be a little Viking up there as well. Click on that, that'll subscribe you. Click the little bell and you'll get the notifications, the alerts. And I strongly recommend that if you like the videos, any of them, you hit like. What that'll do is it'll tell YouTube that it's a very popular video. The number of likes compared to the number of views. And it'll make it higher in the standings. And what that'll do is get the word out to more people if you like my presentation style. You can also share. Sharing with friends and family. Click the share button down below. I know I kind of sound like a broken record when it comes to that, but it's important. That's what I'm doing here is putting my face on here. I'm a real human being. I think there's information that needs to be shared. People have gotten a lot of bullshit from the news. The mainstream fake news. They're just not telling it the way it is. They're wanting to sugarcoat everything. I don't believe in doing that personally. And one last funny story. The truck. This is my truck that's in a lot of the videos. I'm either driving it or sitting next to it. I was in another city last week. And I parked my truck and I stepped out of it and I started walking across the parking lot. I was at a tractor supply store. Tractor supply company, whatever that store is called. And I get a beep, beep, beep from across the parking lot. And I think this little Toyota, it was either a Toyota or a Honda, about 20 years old, kind of beat up. The guy sticks his hand out the window in the left hand, starts waving, hey, he yells, John! I thought, well, fuck, it's someone from home, he sees me here. He drives up and I look at him, I don't recognize the guy. He says, hey, you're John. I said, yeah. I said, how do you know me? And he says, wow, from YouTube. I said, really? He says, yeah. He goes, I thought you lived down in Sacramento. I said, no, I used to live in Sacramento. He goes, wow, it's really good seeing you, man. We chit-chatted for a few minutes. He told me where he lives, and off he drove. It was just funny, you know. I guess I'm gonna get that from time to time. It cracked me up. You know, there's 18,000 plus subscribers on this channel now, so I guess from time to time, people are gonna see me and recognize me. And I said, "How did you recognize me?" He says, "Well, you're really fucking tall and big, and you stepped out of that big old green truck, so I assumed it was you." He saw me from over 100 feet away. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah. Anyways, it was a good little short story. This is a good short story of a cigar. And to let me know you've watched the whole video, use the word short story in your comments. Yeah. But yeah, I like sharing those little kind of funny stories when I meet people that know me. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, sometimes I make note of it. All right. You have a great day, a great week. We're looking at economic collapse and war. And that's why I'm kind of hankering, or I'm not hankering. That's a stupid word. Fuck. I'm dwelling on these two subjects, the ideas of war and also the economy, because one invariably leads to the other. War leads to the collapse and destruction of an economy, and a destroyed economy leads nations to war. And in both cases, you and I get a shit it's the fan scenario. So chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours? Semper Fi. Godspeed.